Hey everybody, this is Matthew Stelzner, and I'm recording this series of videos on the 10 planetary archetypes and how to honor all the gods and live a rich, multidimensional life. I've chosen to start with the planet Saturn. Saturn, right at this moment here in San Francisco, is rising over the eastern horizon, and so I thought I would begin there. Saturn is one of the most complex of the 10 planetary archetypes, and there's a lot of different dimensions to its character. But let me start by outlining a few of the key ideas for the Saturn channel. Saturn is the archetype at its best that has to do with wisdom and maturity and strength. It has to do with discipline, the capacity for hard work, the capacity for loyalty, and a kind of down-to-earth pragmatism, the capacity to hang in there through life's challenges and work hard slowly towards a goal. Some people are really good with Saturn, and they're able to understand that some gifts in life take a long, hard effort, a slow effort towards the realization of a goal. And other people are not as adept with Saturn and have a harder time kind of hanging in there through the tests and challenges of a long project that might take years. But Saturn is that capacity to work hard at something slowly over many years and ultimately fulfill a goal. And Saturn has a lot to do with mastery and authority. When you're centered in a sense of your own authority, you have a well-integrated Saturn. When you are able to stay organized generally in life, Saturn has a lot to do with order and having your shit together, when you really feel like you're well organized and know where everything is and you're on top of things, you're paying the bills, you're showing up, you're being responsible. That's Saturn. That's the whole area that Saturn relates to, and it's a very important part of what it is to be human, showing up and being responsible in terms of your commitments to family, to lovers, to friends, to work. Saturn has a lot to do with work, with the capacity to work hard, to build a career. Saturn is the structures of life. It's the structure of our body. It's the backbone that holds us up. It's all the bones in our body, the solid structures that keep us erect. Saturn is the structures of our lives in terms of career structures, family structures. Saturn is also related to the past and to history, and sometimes it can be the weight of the past that is kind of holding us back in the past. And so sometimes Saturn work has to do with facing the past and clearing the past, getting rid of the things that are tying you to the past so that you can be more in the present or move more towards the future. And Saturn is also the gifts of the past, the weight of the past that gives us substance. And so Saturn has a lot to do with the qualities of our character that we come into slowly over many years of life experience. And that's how we embody the positive characteristics of Saturnian wisdom and maturity and mastery. Saturn has many challenging characteristics. It is the very principle of challenge and negativity. I sometimes define Saturn as Buddha's first noble truth, that life contains suffering. And so Saturn has a lot to do with working with suffering and how we relate to pain, how we relate to difficult experiences. Are we victimized by those difficult experiences? Do we get resentful about life's challenges? Or do we see life's challenges as opportunities to grow stronger, to forge deeper character and maturity? Are we humbled in a positive sense by life's challenges? Saturn at its best is humanizing. Through life's challenges, through the down moments of life, the hard times, that's what connects us to other human beings in part. We become more human through the difficulties that we go through. And often from those challenges, we have a strong impulse to be of service in the world, to work to relieve suffering in the world. And this is another positive Saturn characteristic. Saturn has a lot to do with contraction, the contractions of life, the birth contractions of life. I think with Saturn, it's important to remember that when we're feeling stuck or tested, or we feel a sense of contraction, that often it's a birth contraction. And what happens when there's a birth contraction? It's because the fetus has successfully grown so large that it can no longer stay in the old container of the womb. And there's that sense of confinement that's temporary as the contractions begin and ultimately leading towards a birth. And I think this is a key thing to remember with Saturn, that often its characteristic contractions are just the other side of the experience of a birth into a new world that you've grown into successfully. And so some questions to consider when it comes to this metaphor of the radio dial with Saturn. If Saturn is a radio station, the radio station where we remember to be responsible, where we remember to be humble, where we remember to do our work. Saturn, I think, has something to do with our life's work, the intended work that we came here to do. And some of us feel that as a kind of burden that we have to carry, but we can relate to that burden, the weight of our intended work in the world, and learn to carry it with greater grace and nobility. And so when tuning in the Saturn band of your personal consciousness radio tuner, as you move out into your day each day, we have to check in with Saturn and see, what are my responsibilities? What is the work that I need to do? Sometimes the Saturn station is turned up too strong. In fact, that is the norm in this culture, where the whole focus is on work and making enough money so that you can retire and feel totally secure. And of course, it's important to be able to pay your bills and so forth, and be able to have a sense of security. And yet sometimes that's so much the focus that you forget other channels, the pleasure channel, for example, and the sexuality channel, or the spirituality channel. And so when you're checking in with Saturn, it's all about knowing how strong the wattage is. We definitely need a certain amount of Saturn in every day. We need to be remembering Saturn every day. When we go on vacation, we remember Saturn less, perhaps. We turn down the dial a little bit on that sense of duty and responsibility. But sometimes we have to turn the dial up when, for example, certain Saturn transits can indicate times where it's time to get your shit together, especially the Saturn cycle, which every 7 years, Saturn moves 90 degrees and makes a hard angular relationship to itself. And so around age 7, Saturn has moved 90 degrees and is square to where it was when you were born. Around age 14, Saturn has gone halfway around the solar system and is opposite where it was when you were born. At around age 21, it's gone 3/4 of the way, and it's square again. And then around age 28 to 31, a 3-year window or so, from approximately your 28th birthday to your 31st birthday, this is what's called the Saturn return. And these are really key moments in the Saturn, in terms of Saturn awareness. These are key moments. I call Saturn the Saturn crossroads, the Saturn cyclical moments, the karmic crossroads of life, where often there's a sense of a kind of birth contraction, but it's a contraction that's compelling us towards greater maturity, mastery, and strength, and wisdom in every area of our life. And sometimes there's that sense of heaviness and contraction, but ultimately it's trying to forge a greater sense of helpful life structures that are more mature and more authentic to who you are. These are the individuation crossroads of life. And And so when you have a Saturn transit, like one of these Saturn crossroads transits, or maybe something like Saturn transiting your sun or your moon, this is a time where the dial, the wattage is kind of turned up on the Saturn channel, and you may feel compelled to focus more on that in that area. And it's appropriate, I think, to put more energy and time into building your career, into becoming more mature in terms of your close relationships, in terms of focusing more on discipline and developing a kind of committed daily effort towards something, where you have a sense of a bigger picture of a slow, steady movement towards the goal. This is a really appropriate way to focus when Saturn transits are present. But other times we need to learn to turn down the wattage on the Saturn channel and focus in other areas. For most people, we're a little too strong with Saturn. Saturn is also the archetype of judgment and negativity, the critic, the superego. And so the work with Saturn often lies in learning to relate to that inner critic, and cultivating more self-love and more self-forgiveness, and learning to turn down that critical voice. So that gives you a little bit of a sense for the Saturn archetype. There's lots more that could be said, but this is just an introduction. So keep watching the rest of these videos to get a sense for all the archetypes, or at least the 10 basic ones. Thanks.